on, if you would call the order.
Rich Gussenberg,
Here.
Sean Kimball, Sarah Stevens Morley,
Here.
Jeff Solon, Greg Rosenblatt,
Here.
Chris Daddy, Megan Rockwell,
Take one of those.
Dennis for you,
Take one of those.
Chuck Knapp. Here.
And then you can take.
For him. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public correspondence. We get a letter regarding Barnum Elementary plantings. I had sent that out to you. Chris, there's space right here. You have one over there.
What time, how late I come in?
Yeah, you can't sneak in.
Oh my God.
You got a-
Size, how much is
A
that?
present here from Vin with your Cheshire School hat so that you can go visit.
Outstanding.
I sent a copy of this out to everyone. I don't know if we need to read it, but basically it is from a couple of members of the community who had some suggestions regarding some of the plantings at Barnum. I sent a note to Justin, said, I know nothing about plantings, so if you would, look into this and get back to me, and I'm gonna turn it over to Justin because I haven't gotten all the word yet, so.
So, I did, out of an abundance of caution, I did also want to check with the town planner to understand from a planning and zoning perspective whether this would be something that was feasible. The direction that I got from the town planner was there were these similar comments that were made through the public hearing process, and that in his opinion we have an approved plan. If we were to entertain these type of modifications, it should go back in front of planning and zoning. His advice to me was that you have an approved plan, there was an opportunity for public input, and we should stick with the approved plan, was the feedback that I received from Mike Lynn. We also just discussed with the landscape architect from a one-to-one swap of the plantings specifically. There are no issues with those plantings that were proposed by the community members. It was just a matter of when you're kind of at the mercy of your town regulatory process in terms of what's on file, approved. We have been keeping in touch with the planning office on any modification, slight or significant, though this isn't necessarily a significant change because it is changing the species of landscape plantings, etc. He would advise that we go back through the planning process, the P&C process, if we were to entertain it.
When would we need to know?
Well, we would want to be doing this, I mean,
When
we're
would we need a decision?
working off of an approved plan. A modification of the approved plan while we're under construction, you would want to make sure that that goes as soon as possible.
When would
In terms of the construction, I would defer to O&G about when the plantings would actually be. We're talking about a swap of X tree for Y tree,
Right.
that type of
In the
stuff.
same location, right?
Yeah.
So,
We'll be doing, some this fall and some in the spring of next year, so, depending on,
This is for Barnum.
yeah, both schools will be following pretty much the same procedure as some plantings, whether or not we'll be getting trees and whatnot in this fall. More likely we'll get those in the spring. But it is something we would want to jump on sooner rather than later, so that they could, we could address that with our subcontractors.
Now, the bid has already been done for it,
Yes.
so you'd end up having to do a change order of some sort. I don't know if
Yes.
there'd be a financial implication or
Yeah,
not.
and I couldn't tell you, and the landscape architect couldn't necessarily tell you whether one tree at 2-inch caliper is $1,500 and the replacement is $1,800, so that would have to go through a proposal request process.
What does it look like from the town's side? Like, if they change this, does the planning and zoning look at
So
the
I,
species of tree that we submitted and say if we want that or not?
I could shed a little light on that. So the planting plan went through town beautification, which I'm staff liaison for, and so there was a lot of discussion at that meeting about the submitted planting plan. I think there were a few modifications that were made at that time. So I had talked to Mike about this also, and Mike's guidance to me was
My guess is you talked to him after I.
yeah, he came
talked
right.
to
He
him.
came in
Yes.
right away, and so his is that it's a mix of native and non-native, which town beautification likes to see both. It's not the absence. It's not the presence of non-natives. It's the absence of natives, is their policy, and there are significant amount of native plantings in the planting plan. So
So with the letter, is this, well, I guess what I'm hearing is, these are comments we already had, we addressed it by mixing it up before it got approved, and they're just making the same comments again, is that correct?
On all native plants.
Or is that the comment that they had before, I guess?
No,
Okay.
I don't believe so.
So these are new comments.
So I guess on our end is if we wanted to pursue anything here, or do we just feel that our plan as is fine and we want to move on?
And is there a goal to try to shift to more native and less non-native, in the long run?
there is that goal, but again, we don't want all native plantings, and the reason why, from what I've learned, and again, I'm not an expert in this field, I'm just staff liaison for town beautification. A lot of the natives are hard to maintain, and they do appear to be like weeds in nature, a lot of them. Whereas a lot of even here on town hall property, there had been a push to go all native here, and we shot it down. Same with Bartland Park, also because it's hard to maintain it. But I think the push with this property is because it was and is adjacent to a large wetland area, and it was all native at one point. That they'd like to see. So this is the correspondence received from the coalition, but I'm not sure who sent
Do you have that?
request.
I think I may have it.
It's from,
This was from,
it's just from Joanna
Coalition.
Giddings and Karen Schnitzer.
I don't get to get in the back room.
yeah, I think they're just concerned
I
citizens.
tried to sit back there too, they wouldn't let me.
Yeah, and I don't think they wrote it as from an organization.
Yeah.
And so I'm very pro native plants. I have a lot in my garden. They are difficult to contain. I think that because we've had input from another town committee and they think it's good and that there's been a balance achieved, I would feel comfortable keeping it as is.
About what percentage is native versus non-native? Do we have a feel?
I can get you that information, but I can tell you that it was one of the comments that were addressed through the comment process. If you recall, that process, we were in front of the P and Z Commission several times on both projects. And it was that was among the list of remarks and comments that we modified through site plan review.
I'll say in my opinion, then, it sounds like they had an opportunity to comment on it, and similar to comments that we had previously that were addressed already, so I don't see that we need to go back through the process, that's my opinion.
Anyone else? You agree with that? Okay, yeah, I've seen a lot of heads. Okay, if that's the case, then I will write a letter back to them and let them know that we looked into it, and at this point in time, we're staying with the plans as approved. All right, thank you. Approval of meeting minutes, May 22nd, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Was there an abstention? No. Report, state space standard reimbursement. As you saw, I think we sent a note out to everyone. We were very, very pleased. Our state legislators came through. There were two issues that we had dealt with several months ago. One was the fact that we were above the state standards for space at both schools, and therefore we're not getting full reimbursement. And the second was there was a new law that had been passed that gave an extra 15% reimbursement for the construction of preschool facilities. But because our facility was already in the hopper, we weren't getting that 15%. And the state our legislators were able to get through the budget approval of both of those, so that we will get reimbursement for the extra square footage, which was due exclusively to special ed programming, the 2 classrooms we added at Norton, plus obviously square footage for the preschool at Barnum, and the extra 15%. Now, we haven't, to my knowledge, the budget and the law hasn't been signed by the governor yet. We have some possible calculations as to what it could mean, but we won't be 100% certain until all the dust settles. But I don't know, Rich, if you wanted to.
Yeah, so first of all, the bonding, or the action that was taken for the $9 billion in bonds that were appropriated will take effect on July 1st. So at that point, then everything that will be due for the project will be in effect at that point. And I've had conversations with Sean in the office regarding when we're getting reimbursement. And part of the reason why we haven't received any reimbursement yet is because the state holds off until there's a settlement on what the actual reimbursement rate is going to be. They don't like to start at one rate and then have to go back and redo that first or second reimbursement and then go forward. So because it was imminent, they kind of put a hold on it, and we should start seeing the money start flowing sometime in July.
But what it means is that, we still have to work within the 166 million for the 2 buildings, but it means that we're gonna see much more money coming back from the state above and beyond the amount that we had calculated. And it could be a substantial amount, particularly if the additional 15% is part of the entire building and not just the preschool area
So
of the building.
I think from what I remember too, the space that was over the limit for Norton, Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, was like 5,000 square feet?
Yes.
Okay, so 5,000 square feet times the cost of construction on a square foot basis, I mean, you're talking, tens of millions of dollars, and you'll get 50% of that back. On the North End project, also the same thing there, but as you said, the way the legislation is written, we're interpreting it as meaning that the 15% is not just on the pre-K part of the building, it's on the entire building. So you would go from 50% to 65% reimbursement rate, which is substantial. I mean, you're talking, $14 million of a pickup there. So,
Yeah,
It's-
so
it's-
the town is quite pleased, and we'll see as we go forward some of the details, but it'll be much less bonding that the town will have to do, so.
Could I just?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I had a meeting with Jim Jascott this morning. So he's concerned about the amount of money the town has paid out to date. So we paid out $23.3 million to date, and we haven't received any of the reimbursement back yet.
Correct.
So should we expect to start seeing after the July date? Because now we're getting about $5 million a month in invoices, which
Right.
fortunately we have the cash on hand to do it. But when we're taking money out, then we're not getting interest on that
Of
money,
course.
and so it's costing the town a significant
Yeah.
amount of money. So is it?
we're going to be filing for a reimbursement request,
and that money should start flowing soon thereafter.
Okay, great, thank you.
When will we know the numbers for the school though, for the additional 15%?
So we think we know what the numbers are, but the way it was written, and I think a lot of people are just cautious that, you know, we get overly optimistic and, you know, we feel as though, you know, we're interpreting the way the law is written incorrectly. But I think that based on, so when this first came out, I think a lot of us were speculating on, well, what does this mean? Is it for just that portion of it? Is it for the whole building? And I think we kind of came down and determined that the way it was written, it is the whole building. And then, you know, after the initial shock of learning that, we started to speak with people at the state, and I think we've gotten more confirmation, and I think we're feeling more comfortable that you will get the entire, you'll get the 15% on the entire building, not just.
And you said when we start getting the money in July, it'll stay
It'll
at
be
65%.
It'll be at the 65%. That is
Yeah.
correct.
So we'll know in July what the rate is.
Well, that's true. I think, you know, one of the questions was when are we going to know? Well, we'll know when we start getting the reimbursement rate, because we'll see it at the 65% or the 50% plus.
Yeah, I didn't know if we get a letter from OSCGR, but you said that's probably unlikely.
Yeah.
Town council report was very positive. We had no, you know, conflict of any sort. They were very interested in the extra topsoil that we have and the cost of moving it off, and we're exploring the ins and outs of what the different piles were, and as we have been. And so there was quite a bit of conversation regarding that. Other than that, I told them, you know, that both projects are moving along well. They're you know, running on schedule and running under budget. Andrew put some pictures up on the screen for the board members, for the council members to see, and it was a very positive meeting. I know a couple of you were at the Barnum naming ceremony. Chuck, Greg was there. Very, very positive. There were some, you know, speeches by some of us, but Barney Barnum's speech was, you know, really, really interesting. You know, I expected to see a Medal of Honor winner, you know, 6'4", 240 pounds, about 5'5", you know, 190 pounds, and he got up there and gave a rousing speech. I mean, it was really good. It was really something. So I think it will be a wonderful thing for the kids to emulate some of the things that have gone on in his life and the things that he stands for. And then there was the Norton topping off ceremony. Adorable. The kids from Norton had all signed one of the girders that was there. They brought all the kids out. They're all chanting, "Raise that beam, raise that beam." And they did raise the beam and put it in place. And it was just a, you know, 20-minute, 25-minute ceremony. But, you know, the kids were very, very excited to be there. And having the school being built in their backyard is kind of a unique, special circumstance. So they've been very involved in it. So it was, again, another really nice activity. So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in on. I know several of you were at one or more of these events.
I'll just second that the topping up ceremony, both ceremonies were amazing, and it's probably one of the most emotional and inspirational topping up ceremonies I've been part of in my career. It was pretty cool to be there for it. So.
Okay.
Everyone should know July 1st is Barney Barnum Day too. Just
Is Barney Barnum Day?
coincidence, yes.
Oh.
If you look
Who-
if you look them up, it's July 1st.
Who determined that?
Oh, I don't know. They did it back in 1967, but
Oh,
as
town
far as
did?
I'm concerned, yeah, as
The
far as
town
I'm
did
concerned,
that?
it
Oh,
continues
okay.
every year.
I hadn't heard that. I wonder if the town's even aware. Probably some
They have it on their
some
historical
resolution
website.
from,
Yeah.
it's on the website?
There's a whole
Oh, okay.
article about it. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll have to check into that.
We should reshare it on Facebook on July 1.
Yeah, okay. CMRS monthly progress report. Ryan, it's all yours.
Okay. So both schools are moving along very well. At the Norton School, we've finally started removing some of the topsoil, as some people may have heard or seen. The clean topsoil is being taken by Richards. We are still working with Eagle to resolve any final required documents and certifications to remove the contaminated soil to the facility. So we've been working closely with Lynn from Eagle on that. The Norton School wrapping up steel over the next week for structural steel installation. They've got the site work, all of the underground that is coming up the main drive from North Brooksville. Water should be wrapping up. Water and electrical should be wrapping up next week, with the sanitary following, the force main following about a week later, and then they'll get back to patching in the paving of that, and reworking the fencing, taking down all the temporary fencing that's around there. So by mid to late July, we should have that parking lot turned back over to Norton School for the return to school in August. The drilling, they have 5 wells left to drill. Once those wells they should be completed by, if not by the end of next week, early the following week, with the holiday next week. They will then move into the phase of installing the vault and installing all the horizontal piping and tying it into the building. They're starting roofing on Building D July 7th. So that's after the 4th of July holiday, we'll get roofing started on Building D. So they have, the mason is going to be increasing their manpower next week, so they're going to start to do all of the masonry walls around the mechanical electrical rooms. We'll get that going. A lot of this is necessary for finishing, doing the skin of the building. The cold form metal framing has been ongoing, so they're working that and the sheathing. So that's moving well. And then for the north end, steel's a little bit farther behind, as we had talked about. They started about 3 weeks later than the Norton. That's not a delay for any reason. They're not behind schedule. They are perfectly on schedule. There's just 2 different plans of the schedule. So moving forward well with that. Our well fields at the north end have been completed with the vaults and horizontal piping installed. They are currently working on running all the conduit for the permanent electrical. RWA has been on site for about the last week and a half, doing all the water line, monitoring our installation of all the new water lines, and they completed the second tap on, the tap on Jarvis Street earlier this week. The tap on Marion was middle of last week. So the water line is now tied in at North End, the Barnum School. The permanent water line is tied in. They've got about 30% of the 30 to 40% of the precast curbing has been installed throughout the North End project, and moving forward quickly. With that, they are starting to work on the ball field at the North End, getting the underground and sub-based working on that. They've got cold form metal framing going on in Building D, as well as decking is on most of the building. They still have a portion of Building B, the gym area, as well as all of Building A to erect steel in, so they're working towards that. They poured the slab on deck for Building D, I want to say Friday, I believe they poured that. So we're moving forward well, and they're looking to pour the slab on for Building C, slab on deck next week. So Norton, I should have mentioned, they have slab on decks for D and C already completed at Norton. So everything is moving very well at both projects. Obviously just different paths to get to the same end date.
Any material problems, any
Nope.
labor issues, nothing?
We've had no issues. Everything's been going well. Minor changes, knock on wood, but yeah, minor changes that we're working through with the design team. For change order work, nothing to present today, but we are working through, and we'll probably have some change orders to present to this committee next month. But everything's minor. The only big one, obviously, is the contaminated soils was a big one. So what we have to date on the North End School, the Norton School, we have a negative 9,039 so far approved change orders. Those were the credits from phase 1, and about 248,492 for pending change orders. Now pending, even though you approved the change order for the contaminated dirt, that still sits in the pending column until it all gets officially through the process. But so the vast majority of that pending has already been through this committee and approved. At North End, we have still the same thing. 24,000 and change was of a credit that came back from the phase 1, and about $84,000 worth of pending change orders at the North End. So we're working through all of those. And we'll continue to work that and get that resolved and present those change orders as they get approved by the design team to this committee. Looking at the summary, at the north end, we are looking at building A is about 3% complete, building B about 10%, building C 12%, building D 15%, and the site work at about 15%. At Norton, so in their building A is roughly 9% done. They have all the steel up for most of the steel up for building A, as well as some of the masonry work that's going on. Building B about 15%. There's a little bit of a misunderstanding on these. The building D, C, and D are not 40%. That was based on exterior work, skin and steel. So building C and D, we will adjust those on the future reports. And then site work's about 16% done. So.
Comments? Questions?
Has there been anything else from the like the community as far as noise?
So,
violations, anything like that?
yeah, something came up, Sean reached out to me about, the cutoff from Waterbury Road. It's the old Waterbury Road, and I think it's Huckins Road. So the GPS sends you that way when you follow the GPS, so some of the, dump trucks and larger construction vehicles have been using that, road. We have sent something out this week to all of our subcontractors, but specifically Richards, asking or directing them to tell all their, truckers, their vendors, nobody's to use that road there, to take Waterbury Road down to the stoplight at Marion Ave, or Marion Drive? Marion Road, sorry. And to take Marion Road from that stoplight, the left onto Marion Road from that stoplight. So we will continue to enforce that, and stay on top of that and with everybody. It's just that old Waterbury Road and Huckins Road is a very narrow road. It's steep, and it's just much better way to get to this job site is to follow Waterbury Road to the stoplight and then take Marion. So, and then at Norton there's some comments on a Facebook page or Facebook group related to the Cheshires, related to the no construction vehicles, or somebody was told that there would be no construction traffic in the neighborhood of Sharon Drive and Farmington Drive for the summertime. Not sure where that came from, but that's never been the plan. Unfortunately, as we know, we couldn't come in through North Brooksville because that whole road, the whole driveway was is opened up with trenches in it and whatnot. So construction will remain, traffic will remain coming through the Sharon Drive entrance to this job site for the duration of the project. So
There are times that comments on Facebook aren't always fully accurate. And this appears to be one of them. I read that all the time, but I didn't see those comments, so I don't know.
I'm not on Facebook, but Brian Percuda, our superintendent, is, and he joined that group so that he could, obviously
Usually on the education.
keep an eye on it, and he wants to be proactive. He wants to do what he can to, address any concerns from the community, and this is not one that we can accommodate them with, but obviously we will. I think part of it is we're running 5 or 6 trucks a day, loads of that soil out of there, so they're seeing some increased traffic because of that. They should be wrapping up, with the clean topsoil in the next week. And then we'll have the same activity for the contaminated topsoil. But once that's done, we should go back to the normal traffic and not see as many larger. These are large dump trucks that are taking out. I think they think they're triaxles that are taking out this material. So again, I'm not surprised that there's some comments, but again, I'm not sure where that information came from, but it was incorrect. We will be using that Sharon Drive and area for transporting materials and
Yeah,
bringing
we have to.
We have to.
Anything else?
You guys survived the heat this week?
Yes, we survived the heat. Everybody worked the full week. There was no shutdowns. We had no issues safety-wise, which was very good. We were very conscious of that. Did a lot of discussions of that leading into it. But yes, they did. We had 3 days where it actually hit 100 at both job sites, or over. So 102 was the high that I saw, at one point. So you can imagine the guys working on the steel are real troopers, because that was not a comfortable situation to be in. That steel gets very hot. So.
Especially with that dark primer on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Architects design update, FF and the E meetings.
So we've been holding, we held our last FF&E meeting last week, our last meeting prior to the break for the summer. with the working group. The intent is to utilize the next month and a half, 2 months to document the plans, generate FF furniture, fixture, and equipment plans, interface with the vendors to understand what our budgets are. So plans, quantities, types of FF&E fixtures, and budgets, so that by the time when everybody in the district starts getting back to school, we have a total package to review to make sure that we've captured everything that we discussed within the meetings. We'll continue to speak with Vin and Jeff and their team over the summer. We have a meeting, not next week, but the week after the 4th of July to discuss the pre-kindergarten equipment at Barnum. And all that. We also have an IT meeting that we'll be holding sometime in the next month. We haven't nailed down a specific date yet, but the goal is to have those entire packages put together, as well as the budgets for around the beginning of September, so that we can quickly validate with the working group that we captured everything. We can then report back to the NGSBC where we stand with respect to the budgets for FF&E and technology, and give a full presentation. What I've included in your packet this evening is our latest meeting from June 17th, where we basically went over the bulk of the material. There are a couple of items that for this presentation on the 17th are labeled in progress. I think we got to the bottom of those through that meeting. But this is the nature of the presentations that we're giving with the working groups. And we do have one item to bring up in the CA update that was resultant from the FF&E meetings regarding some of a request for some additional office space within the existing layouts of the intervention spaces at both Norton and North End. I've included a markup with...
Yeah, let's hold off on that
Okay.
just a minute, and we'll come back to it. I know, Megan, you sat in
Sit on two
on
of
2
them.
of the
Yeah.
meetings. I sat in on partial of a couple of the meetings. A lot of staff members, a lot of input, depending on where the area was. Music, I remember going on for quite some time, as they were very specific about the different spaces and the equipment and the furniture that they needed, things like that. As chairman of the committee, I didn't want to give a whole lot of input, but I've thrown a couple of ideas out about the library and some things like that. But it's been a good group, and they've given a lot of input and a lot of detail as they've gone through. Anything, Megan, you want to?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was interesting to just sit and listen. I chimed in once with some of the breakout furniture. But it was interesting to see how Nicole had shown some pictures of ideas in which when everyone saw different things, like, oh, we would like that, the tables where the sort of benches kind of like went into them. It was just sort of a picture, but then everyone just gravitated towards that one image. There wasn't it wasn't like a catalog shot. It was kind of like more of a real life shot, and everyone really gravitated towards that. And that was used initially in her pictures in the library. But then everyone said, "Oh, wouldn't that be nice in the breakout area as well?" But yeah, I mean, it was interesting to listen to everybody and listen to what they wanted and what they didn't want, how certain things they wanted to be the same, and certain things they were open to some change.
So I think there's still some areas, the library, cafeteria, furniture, that were still outstanding. Vin, did you have anything else you wanted to jump in? Vin?
I mean, the big thing that
coordinates
came out of it is no casters for any of the
Right.
kids on anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
to echo what you said, we were getting good input. You know, there are some decisions that were made, yes or no, on certain items, a little bit more work
work to be done. We do have some of the furniture, specifically the children's chairs and work table in central office. We ask people to come in and visit, and we set up QR codes and a Google Sheet so people can comment. Of course, it's summer, so we had one teacher stop by so far. So I talked to Nicole from Tecton, and she's gonna leave the furniture with us, through the summer, so everyone will have an opportunity to give input.
And accommodations for special needs kids in each of the classrooms so that some of the furniture is flexible and can be used with a wheelchair or things like that. So that was nice to see that was, I guess that's, you have to.
Yep.
It's a legal requirement.
Yeah, Nicole, from Tecton, she just does a fantastic job as she tries to guide people through, so.
Very
She has a lot of
patient.
patience.
I was gonna say, very patient.
She's really good.
Okay. Has there been any meetings or anything of the materials and finishes working group? No?
I spoke with Anna earlier today. We have started to get a lot of the interior submittals that are in. So there are going to be some communications that will be going out, just basically saying, this was the design intent, this is what our recommendation is, do you have any opinions? One, either yes, or maybe we need to rethink this. So in terms of color selection, that type of thing. Those communications will typically come by email, but if we need to have a further discussion, just let us know. We'll set up a quick Teams meeting or something to review it, okay?
Okay, now do you want to talk
I
about?
have some questions on that.
Yeah.
So unlike the other parts of the architect package, these are combined, the north end and the north end. Is the intent that everything's gonna be the same furniture, like that's what it looks like throughout there?
Well, ideally, yes, we have continuity of,
Like the media stuff in the library is gonna be the same?
yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we don't have a farm and field type of furniture motif for Barnum and Woods and Trails for.
I was confused because I didn't know where we started and where we're headed.
Okay, well, where we've been, where we've been.
No, that's good. And then another question, I see a lot of stand and sit desks, sit-stand desks for all the office space and everything. Is that, was that requested, and we need other high chairs for them, or mats or anything for standing? Is it going to increase with more furniture, like ergonomic mat for standing?
It shouldn't. These sit-stand desks are, I will validate this, but the assumption is that this is just for the human comfort of the person that's at the desk. There haven't been any requests for supplementing that with higher chairs or mats, orthopedic mats or anything like that.
Got it.
Anything else, Chuck?
I'm good.
Okay. Justin, you want to
So
walk them through?
So I provided an 11 by 17 markup for both projects, and my apologies that this is pretty small, but I think it tells the story when you start looking at the entire floor plan. The areas that are bubbled in the floor plan, a vignette, a markup directly above it, indicates some of the requests that were through the FF&E process. And I will say that, when we start the project, there's an educational specification. We go through the program validation and then go room by room where we ultimately arrive at the layouts. There was a request to add RAM, reading and math interventionist office back into proximity or adjacency to the intervention spaces for both projects. There was also a request to add a de-escalation room somewhere within this general area or off of a corridor Ideally not directly next to a classroom, because if a student needs to regulate, you don't want them loud noises or distractions directly to a classroom. So for the markup on Barnum Elementary School, the revision would be to move the line of the professional development room planned south in order to accommodate reading and math intervention office off of the intervention room, as well as have a de-escalation room off of the corridor. That's a pretty that's a pretty simple adjustment in terms of the spaces that are in there. It affects a lot of things in terms of electrical, fire protection, mechanical, finishes, that type of stuff that would need to be captured if we move forward with this. For Norton, it's slightly different, with the exception that we are grabbing some of the space out of the professional development room to move storage down off of the professional development room, provide a de-escalation space off of the corridor. But in the intervention room to the right of the plan that's bubbled, we would be including a reading and math office in the intervention space. Now, I will say that I did see some communication on the way over here from the principal that may be reconsidered, that dedicated office. She thinks that keeping the intervention room at the size, maybe instead of the office that's created off of the professional development room, can be the reading and math office, and the LSTs, the literacy specialists,
Learning support.
Wrong acronym, I'm sorry.
You're close.
Those tutors are historically transient or temporary within, they may visit or be in the school 1 or 2 days a week. They're typically within the intervention room proper. So Jody at least thinks that we can continue to keep them in the intervention space. So my communication with Dr. Solon and Vin this week was, if we're really putting an office in that intervention room, it's the resultant space in the intervention room is not ideal. It starts getting compromised. So the feedback that we got from the principal kind of supports that, addresses that concern.
Where did the request come from initially?
It came from the,
Well, it came from the chat. The
Yeah.
original discussion started around the de-escalation room from Chapman.
yeah,
Because right now, what happens if they have a student that's dysregulated, and obviously typically special ed students, they take them into a conference room. And that's not ideal, and that kind of started a little bit of a domino discussion, and then it led into the RAM rooms as well, so.
Had any of this ever come up as part of the conversation?
The de-escalation rooms are new. The RAM spaces, were in the ed specs, but the de-escalation rooms are new. So, I think it's really needs a little bit more discussion internally, and I think the goal tonight was to just put it out as a heads up, for the school building committee. And yeah, there's gonna be a cost, but, now's the time to make these changes to the building before we put any walls up.
The one comment that I had when I looked at the plan is I felt that the professional development, which is the teacher's room, was already not particularly large for a school of 600 plus to 700 plus students and all the staff that goes with it. And then we're shrinking that by a third, which I think would make for a space which is, pretty, pretty small for the staff. I recognize there are some other areas around the school, but, realistically, as an ex-elementary principal, pulling the staff together for coffee hands, for things like that, or just even a place for paraprofessionals to all come and have lunch, things along those lines. I was uncomfortable when I looked at the plan to see to see that space shrinking a bit. I do have to say, I opened a school in 1997. We had put in a whole bunch of small spaces for various people. And the day before we opened the school, I had the equivalent of one of these RAM people following me around saying, "Rich, where's my room gonna be?" And I said, "Well, there's a little conference room that's part of my office. You can go there for now." And before I knew it, that was the end of my little conference room. So the day we opened the building, we were already short spaces. That does happen all the time as these various places grow. But so I don't know if people have any feedback. As we said, this is just being put out there at this point as a heads up, as the plans, I guess, are still being looked at and evolving.
If the RAM was part of the ed spec, like the RAM rooms, right? Where was it before?
So I can answer that question. So the RAM rooms were part of the ed spec. They were part of the early schematic drawings. When we went through program validation and then room by room, there were discussions about decentralizing those office spaces and having them be part of the intervention rooms. So that was one of the first things when Dr. Solon called me after this issue came up from the FF&E meeting. I wanted to make sure that we went back and validated where that decision process happened. So, and it's one of the reasons why we hold these meetings, is to make sure that, is everything in the ed spec exactly what you want? Is it going to be how you operate the building? And we course correct where during that late schematic design, early design development, to nail down what the program is. There's no professional development office that's in the ed spec, but that was a request to encumber. So we were able to make some modifications in those areas to accommodate that request. So to Rich's point, if you add up all of the teacher planning and teacher workroom areas, we exceed the space that was allocated in the educational specifications, but they're decentralized. They're smaller spaces throughout the building. They're more proximate to the learning communities that are closer to where the teachers are. So that was something that was recognized during design, that should we have a place that if we needed to could hold more teachers than one of the teacher workrooms. So can it hold 100 teachers? No. But the assumption was that if there was a space that was needed for there, it would likely be utilized from the media center or something like that.
Right.
So we had this plan initially then to decentralize these areas, right? Everybody looked at it, said it was okay. Then we get to the point where we're at furniture and we say, no, we don't want that. We want to have just one area for these rooms.
So the decentralized areas are still there.
Well, why do we need the extra rooms then? Like,
the-
why did we
the
go that
reading
direction initially, I guess?
Which I don't.
Like, why did we have, it sounds like we had these separate areas kind of built into all of the classrooms to have these
Yeah, so
reading
each
groups
grade
and everything,
level,
right?
well, each grade level had kind of an office space
Yep.
with some storage. Instead of putting storage in each of the rooms, they did it per wing or per grade level. Dr. Solon, as we were getting near the end of putting the plans together, also said we need one central room for, he called it professional development, but it's also a teacher's room, place where you could pull groups of people together, that they're not just atomized out in their particular wings or whatever. So he asked that we take a look at the plan, and TechDon was asked to find a space there, and that's where those spaces came from. That's totally separate from all of the discussion of RAM and interventionists and all that.
Yeah, where the professional development conversation comes in is that we're borrowing space from it. We're making that space smaller in order to potentially encumber additional office space.
And I think it's worth noting that Dr. Solon brought up the same concern that you had, or the original space wasn't quite big enough to fit everybody, so they probably have to relocate to another place when they were having, all staff meetings, in which case he felt comfortable taking that extra space out, because it was still serving its function.
Yeah, I don't
'cause
know
if they
that you
don't
could ever,
already-
the teachers' rooms or professional development would never accommodate the whole staff. If you did that, you'd probably have to move them into the media center or something along those lines. I'm just thinking on a day-to-day basis, before school coffee in or lunchtime, you've got people who, move around the building, they're not part of that grade level team. Where do they go for lunch, that sort of thing.
For Barney Day, right? The Barney Day cake.
That's
Yeah.
right, that's right. And I know it sounds foolish, but those are the things that create a culture in a building.
Yeah.
And one of the dangers in a building this size, with the design as it was partially looked at, is that the school could become very separate, where each grade level is doing their own thing and not communicating and not looking themselves as a full school. So I was very supportive of adding those professional development spaces. And I'm a little uncomfortable with shrinking them, but ultimately, I'm not the one gonna be using the building.
I guess what I'm struggling with then is, like, what changed that we want to add these spaces?
The furniture meetings, the actual RAM tutors were on the call, and they said, well, we actually need a private space because we have sensitive conversations.
Oh, we engaged all these groups during design, didn't we?
Yeah.
We did, Chuck, but, these de-escalation room didn't come up in the discussion. It was discovered now. I can't remember every detail of every discussion, but we are where we are. We have to deal with the request. It's not gonna be a huge cost. I know we're gonna have to trade off some spaces, but better off doing it now, to your point, Rich. You don't wanna do it after the school's open and realize that, oh, gee, we need a place to have, a person or a student de-escalate.
I don't know who was in all the meetings, but there were discussions about what should the interventionist room look like, where should it be, those did come up in conversations. Now they're coming back and saying that design isn't gonna work best for us, we're looking for some changes. Ultimately, it's gonna be up to this committee whether you're willing to accept changes and pay for it.
Well, Rich, what do you think is more important, having the coffee in the morning or having a de-escalation room for a kid having an issue? I'm serious, I'm asking you a
No,
question.
I know, I'm smiling because I'm thinking about it, I never had a de-escalation room, but I had a real need for it on multiple occasions. We do have more and more children who need to be removed from classrooms for their own good and for the good of the other students. I often would have to put them in a conference room, put them in an area in the office, which also could cause disruption. There were a lot of things like that as time went on. So, as we deal with more needy students, I can see that real need for that space. I can't speak to the office need for some of the RAM people and stuff. There's, a bigger intervention room. Do they need to divide it off into some smaller office spaces? So I can't speak to that, I don't know. In terms of the teacher's room, I say the coffee in, but that's only a small piece of it. I think, having spaces within a building where groups of people come together, and it may be professional development during a day, it may be things like that. I don't question at all the need for that space that was added in. I just question whether taking a third of that space out will make it not very, very well functioned. So I haven't made any commitment or decision regarding the plan. I saw it for the first time. Justin had mentioned it to me about a week ago, and I saw the plan for the first time yesterday when it came through. So, my own, I still have an open mind as to, what we should be doing.
Yeah, this does need further internal discussion, with Dr. Sullivan and Marlene Solano, the assistant superintendent, with Justin. I saw you got some feedback from the school principal, so we'll work it through. I mean, there wasn't any plan to get approval this evening. It was just to give the school building committee a heads up that this is what's being looked at now.
We don't have any idea what kind of costs would be involved here, do we, at this point?
I don't. No. I tried to list every piece of scope that I could think that would be affected, including, you're adding linear feet of wall, you're adding doors, you're modifying the fire protection system, you're modifying the lighting system, you're adding electrical receptacles, data receptacles,
HVAC.
HVAC.
Sinks.
Yeah.
There's gonna be
You're touching a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Why don't we just change the plants now too then? Serious.
In terms of other new schools being built, is it becoming a standard to have a particular de-escalation space? Yeah. I can see that. I can see the reason, right, why that wasn't part of the ed spec, and it's becoming more of a discussion now
Yeah.
because that is a movement of of
And-
supporting more students.
And different districts do it differently. Sometimes they're within intervention rooms or
Sure.
resource rooms. They're simply a furniture solution that, provides a kind of a
a
calming
quiet corner.
area. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
We are also seeing this solution as well.
Yeah, and I like that this is a separate space because I feel like it doesn't, I don't know, in my elementary school, whenever someone went to the intervention room, it was like a whole thing, right? And so this is a separate space. I think that's nice.
Rich, just a quick, again, tapping into your experience, because I don't have the experience that you have, but are you by any chance suggesting, and again, I'm just asking, that if the teacher space is getting too small to be functional, that maybe it gets repurposed? Or no?
I think that's something that the principals would need to take a look at, depending on how, I can tell you, I never had a building that had the individual offices at each grade level like this. So, come lunchtime, come planning periods, things like that, will they go to those spaces? For me, a teacher's room was always an important central piece of who we were, in terms of this is, you wanted to grab a group of teachers together to plan on a new curriculum. Their classes are going on, maybe we're bringing in some subs to cover. The teacher's room would be a place where we could sit down and we could do that.
Understood.
So, this building is structured differently than the way that my buildings were. So I think the principals have to take a look and say, the way that we function and work, will these spaces work for us?
To give you a sense of the scale, this room is about 30 by 15 feet, which is a little bit smaller than where we would be heading, right? So it would be slightly larger than this room.
After
So
we
it's still-
took it away?
Yeah, after you took it away. So it's still a pretty sizable space.
How many of us are in here right now?
Yeah.
17.
Okay. So maybe about half, less than half the teacher force?
So I would recommend you continue to talk with the school people and we'll
Yeah.
bring it up at a subsequent meeting, and meanwhile you have some, you can take a look at it and give some thought to what you think.
Do we want to ask our construction team to see if they can look up going through an extensive exercise to put an order of magnitude on what they think this is? Is it 5,000, 50,000?
I would wait until they settle on a plan. I think if on the way here, he's getting notes from the principal saying, you know, maybe we should make some changes, and I think they just saw this for the first time. I wouldn't jump in and have them put any time and effort into it until they've got a plan that they can really work from.
I'm just wondering about time frame, unless we have tons of time, because we're looking at another month before we get an answer from them, because that'll be our next meeting. And then we'll have all our questions or whatever, and let's assume we're okay with it, then another month for them to review it and get back to us. So you're looking at September before we can vote on it to say, based on costs, right?
Well, I would think you could do both for next meeting. Couldn't you have come in with a plan and a cost estimate at that time?
Well, I think if O&G is willing to give you know, a rough order of magnitude based on, you know, markup, or I think you're somewhere in between that price range, that $45,000 price range, $5,000 and $50,000.
I was thinking 50 to 100, depending on what your, you know, the specifics of it. Right?
Per building.
Per building, yes.
5 sounds a lot better, I'm just thinking.
The other thing to be very conscious of is schedule. I was just reviewing the schedules just real quickly right here that you all have a packet of now. In Norton, we are obviously, you know, ahead of where we are in North End. C building, they're looking at walls starting, you know, interior wall framing starting middle of July. So again, if we have an idea of where the changes might happen, we can hold off those smaller areas. And then B building is more like middle of August. You know, for Norton, North End is roughly about a month, 3 weeks farther back. So you have a little bit more time for the North End, for the Barnum School. You know, in C and B area, but it looks like the work is more predominantly in B area for North End, so that's like September timeframe. So you definitely have much more time frame depending on where the final location of these rooms and the changes are. So.
That's why we hate to do this at this point. You know, and
But I got an answer to what I was looking for. It's a $50,000 change on each building.
at least.
It's not a 5,000, it's
Right.
not a 200,000, so your 50's, you don't think it's 50? 60, 49, 5?
I think it's 100,000.
We'll see. This would be a nice test to see where the schedule is.
Well, ultimately, it's gonna be up to this committee, and we'll, at that point, have a sense of what the change would entail and an approximate cost of what it would be. But we wanted you to see it. This just came up, as I said, I heard about it a week ago for the first time. I think we all would have preferred that this was dealt with a year and a half ago when we were doing.
You know, the plans are not perfect, they're very good, and that's what we're hoping for. There's gonna be changes from the owner along the way. That's what we look for.
Anything
it would-
else on that?
It would be good, though, to hear whatever the final plan is or comes up with. It'd be nice to hear Dr. Solomon explain firsthand what and why and what he sees and whatnot as the actual end user of it. And just know it would help me say, oh, crap, that's, no brainer, we need it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. As you say, you're turning to me as someone was a principal, but I'm not.
This
principal.
principle, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I'm
No,
not a
that's why
I'm not a
saying
Cheshire school person, so.
Yeah, no, so that's why I say if he could be, you know, here or even if he would type an email, if he can't be here to us or something, just to tell us his concerns firsthand, it just helps put me in the mindset of, oh, well, gosh, this is a huge need, I didn't realize that, you know.
Well, we'll put this on the agenda for our next meeting, and at that point, you know, hopefully Dr. Solon will be here and can speak to it, if he wants to bring in another staff member with him to talk about the needs. And we'll take a look at the plan, take a look at the projected costs, and the committee can make a decision if they want to move ahead or not. Okay?
Would you guys be able to, the final, to put it up there, so that we could maybe zoom in or something?
Yeah.
We're gonna make it small.
Yeah,
These
I-
are even,
it's-
no, but I get it, I'm
Yeah,
just saying, when it comes to
certainly
final,
probably should have foreshadowed this. We did send it out digitally.
Yeah, I put it on my
couple
computer.
days ago.
Yes,
Hopefully,
we will.
yeah.
Got it.
but that's not interactive either, you know, it's not like, well, can you there, let me ask you about that.
All right, Justin, Construction Administrative
Okay,
Summary?
so in your packet, we included the last two construction administration reports. These are bi-weekly reports. They're up to Construction Administration Report 9 for both Barnum and Norton. Just some high-level summaries. In the last 14 days, this is for Barnum Elementary. The last 14 days, 6 new construction RFIs for a total of 87 on the project. 53 new submittals for a total of 434. No new PCOs in the last 2 weeks. We continue to hold our bi-weekly OAC meetings, our weekly BIM coordination meetings. We've listed our FF&E working meetings, as well as our site visits. So within the construction administration report, we also include our field reports, which are aligned with our site visits, as well as our consultant field reports. We've issued 4 new bulletins, which were 3 ASIs, or supplemental instructions, 1 proposal request to clarify some expansion details. For Norton, 8 new construction RFIs for a total of 106, 48 new submittals for a total of 432. So just those stats tell you where the bulk of the effort is on the project we're receiving. We're still in the middle of our heavy submittal review period. Subcontractors are getting the balance of the submittals into O&G. They're being reviewed by O&G, sent to the design team. So this is the high volume of submittals. So 48 and 14 days, you're talking, over 20 a week, 25 to 30 a week.
It was 48 in the last 7 days.
7 days, sorry, yes. So 48 in the last week. A couple of PCOs that we're evaluating, as Ryan had mentioned, similar meeting schedule for Norton. We have 3 site visits that are included in the packet. 4 site field reports, 2 from Tecton, 1 from Colarone, and 1 from Ganesh.
Justin, is there any concern about the number of submittals coming in at once? Are you having to triage and prioritize, or is?
So it's a subject of our biweekly OAC meetings. It's also, we get requests from O&G. When we get that volume of submittals, we ask O&G to prioritize which ones that are in. And so we start from that priority list and work backwards. So we're working as a team to address the critical submittals as they come in.
And in those meetings, they put up on the board, and they've got it color-coded, those areas that are most important, that need to get cleared out quickly, and the whole team is on there, so they've been moving them pretty quickly from my viewpoint.
Yeah, for instance, we have a submittal in that is for interior signage that has a 6-week lead time. We know that that is not a mission-critical submittal right now, and O&G is not claiming that it is either. So that's a submittal that we know is one that, things like infrastructure, gypsum framing materials, that type of stuff are the submittals that require the attention
But
first.
we're not running into something where it's like, here's 600 submittals and we need them Wednesday, so.
No, we only tried to do that with 1
I
submittal
would be
per week.
I would be following Ryan home if that were the case. Yeah.
Well, Tecton and their consultants have been doing an excellent job handling the volume of submittals and turning them around in a timely manner and quicker than even, we expect at times. So we are appreciative of that. 'Cause
Anything else? Good, thank you very much. All right, Irish Rep, budget update.
So we don't have the printouts of the budget. Our financial person, Emily, spent the last 3 weeks in Peru and got back on Tuesday night. So we were able to get the invoices out for approval. She is working on the budget updates, and I will send that to the committee or through Rich as soon as she finishes them. But there are no new encumbrances on the budget, so nothing has changed budget-wise. We do have a AIA change order that ONG has prepared, excuse me, for Norton. It's a deduct change order for approximately $6,000. So that will affect the budget because that amount will actually it's a negative. So we'll probably just leave it alone until we start to encumber positive change orders, and then we'll start drawing from the owner's contingency. But right now, there are no changes in the budget.
Anything?
On the budget, we would approve that money's for enrollment study. Does that get moved out once we get invoiced on that, or where does that, when's that change?
So yes, that was approved, right? And so we are encumbering that value on the North End project alone. So the North End will pick that up. And we haven't seen any invoice.
We got one invoice.
Okay. You're not sending it to us, though, are you?
No, we're just processing.
They're just processing it, but for us to track it, we're going to need to, we'll have to get it, and then we can put it against the budget when we see what the value is. So, you're right. You're processing it. We don't need to see it, but we'll.
And it'll show up though in the budget report.
Yeah.
Invoice paid.
And because it's part of the budget, though, then we'll probably have to put it on the list for approval.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're paying the invoice for the enrollment study, so we should be getting
Yeah.
like an update on the cost and everything for that.
Yeah.
Why did we,
Okay, yeah.
why did we decide that we were putting it only on North End? I don't remember that.
I think because we have more money in it.
There's substantially more money in the North End as far as the contingency goes. So I think it was, what was the study again? Like $35,000. So if we split it, it wouldn't have broke the bank on Norton. But I think we felt just keep it on one project.
You also get a higher percentage.
When we talked about it, I thought we were talking about splitting it between the two of them. Was the
No,
conversation?
the decision was made to charge it to the North End.
Just to the North End, yeah, because that's the instructions I gave to Emily to encumber it on that budget.
Yeah.
We need to start looking for an envelope testing.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I've, our field crew, I've asked them to take a look at the needs that we've got coming up. We might need an envelope person. We're going to need certainly a window testing lab for water and air infiltration. So we have a spreadsheet of the different consultants that we're going to need to start procuring, and we'll bring that to the committee, and then we'll write the RFPs and we'll put it out for some of the things may be handled through our independent testing agency.
Okay. Invoice approvals?
Yeah, so we have 5 each for both the projects.
I'll start with the North End Elementary. We have testing services, TestCon Incorporated, $6,948. Do we have a motion? So moved?
Second.
Second? Chris? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And it's unanimous. Owner Representative Services, Arcadis, $12,171.27. Do we have a motion? Dennis?
Second.
Second, Chris? Any discussion? All those in favor? And it is unanimous. Construction Manager, ONG, $3,02,528.49. Do we have a motion?
Yep.
Dennis?
Second.
Chris? Any discussion? All those in favor? We spent $3 million.
Easy peasy.
There you go. Commissioning service, Van Zelm Engineers, $1,170.88. Do we have a motion? Chris? By Chris, Dennis, and Chris. And any discussion? All those in favor? And unanimous. And architectural services, Tecton Architects, $48,699. Do we have a motion?
Sure.
We're on a roll here, Dennis. Second, Chris?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it is unanimous. Okay, over at Norton Elementary School. Testing services, TestCon. We have two different TestCon on here.
So TestCon is our independent testing agency. We're catching up on some of the invoices that they submitted. We had Zach go through the invoices. He had some questions, so he pushed it back to them. They took longer than we expected, so they didn't get on the last month's agenda, but they're here now. So you can see that these go back to March and April.
All right, so we have a March and an April, okay. So TestCon Incorporated, $12,681. And do I have a motion? And a second, Chris? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And unanimous. Once again, TestCon Incorporated, testing services, $19,752. Dennis makes a motion, Chris second, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. Owner Representative Services, Arcadis, $12,095.66. Do we have a motion? Dennis? A second, Chris? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Construction Manager, O&G, $2,845,676.86. Do we have a motion, Dennis? Second, Chris, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it's unanimous. And Architectural Services, Tecton Architects, $41,085. Motion?
Might as well.
You might as well. Second, Chris, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And once again, unanimous.
Van Zelm, this one?
We asked them, you got one for the other project, why not this one? We got no answer.
Fine.
Yeah, right.
Wish these guys would do that.
Not a chance, Chris.
Unlikely.
Not a chance.
Say, don't pay us, we're back. This month's on you.
Gotta keep the subs happy.
It's a freebie. Any other, well, we have no change orders, you said?
There's no change orders. We've talked about some of the things that are coming down the pike, so we think that we'll have something for next month.
All right.
Yeah.
So the
We'll
change
talk to
order,
Dennis. Yeah,
change
we'll
order
obviously talk
working
to
group hasn't met that at all.
No, they have not. We do have one other thing. So I have the open item log. There are three things that we have been tracking. We've been doing that with our working group with Tecton and O&G. One of the things that was brought to our attention a few weeks ago was the relocation of the transformers, which is something that Eversource wanted. And there was a concern that moving the location of the transformer was going to trigger a planning and zoning review. So Justin did check with the planner. Planner said everything is fine, we can handle it with staff review, so that was fine on the north end. I think he then pursued Norton, and I think that was also fine.
Yeah, Norton is less of a concern, mainly because the transformer is staying in the place where it is. We're just swapping the transformer location with the generator, so the generator is a little bit further out within the same enclosure.
Yeah, it's in enclosure, right, okay. So that got resolved, we closed that item. The other two items are what was just discussed here tonight. One was the tree issue, and the other is the layout of the administration area. So
Okay.
we're tracking those. We put target dates for the date for the next NSG, NS. You know,
School
thank you. We put that as a target date, so hopefully we get those resolved at that point. It seems like the tree issue is now closed, but we'll still we'll track the other one.
LCC on that. And then one of the other issues that's on here, Vin, we had talked yesterday, no update on the YMCA parking.
Not yet.
Okay, so that, our attorney had written a potential lease for that space and sent it to YMCA. They're reviewing it, haven't come back, and to my knowledge, there's been no discussion of cost at all.
I don't anticipate any issue, they're just a little slow moving it through,
Yeah.
so.
Okay. All right, any other items for the good? Yes, sir.
The beam signing for the new Barnum Elementary. There's a beam on display through next Friday. So if anybody from this group is interested or any other, you just have to go check in at the construction office and you can sign the beam.
And it's at the main driveway off of Jarvis. I looked at it yesterday. I didn't sign it. No, I didn't sign it. I didn't have a magic marker and I was on my way out. I'll be back again, so. But there were no signatures on it yet. And- Exactly. I could fill up the entire thing. And I know there was some discussion with Dr. Sullivan that he and I were going back and forth today about student signatures and things like that.
And then just
So,
Just
get a
as one-
chance, stop by, wear your hard hat, and sign, and sign.
I'm ready.
Yeah, just scan
Well,
copy.
just scan.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, just if you're coming for the beam signing, just feel free to stop into the house at North End. Someone, either myself or someone else will be there, and we'll get your magic marker, get you signed in on our sign-in sheet, and escort you down to the beam so where everybody's safe.
Love that.
We do ask that if you do come, no open-toed shoes. So no sandals, no flip-flops.
I already made that mistake once.
So just yeah, some sort of closed-toed shoe would be perfect. You're not going far into the construction site. It's just inside the main construction gate. But,
Yeah.
Safety
not
first.
downward.
But yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second? Oh, you don't have discussion on that. All those in favor? Okay. Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.